Hello, I'm Mary V. Today, let's talk about playing on the G string a little more easily. I've had a number of comments recently about people finding it very difficult to reach and play on the G string. So the ideal position for the arm when you're playing is really for it to come out of the shoulder, and the hand and the wrist are really coming out of the shoulder like that, right, down the arm. But of course, when we play on the G string, we have to bring our elbow round and also probably bring our hand round a little bit more. So let's start from scratch about the violin position, and put your violin with no shoulder rest onto your collarbone like that, and just rest it there with the violin against your neck, and hold the violin, and let's have a look at the position that you need to play on the G string with the violin rather flat like this, okay? It's usually at the same angle that the collarbone is at, which is, I think, that's my collarbone, so that's the angle of the violin. So you can see that my arm has to come underneath my elbow, and my fingers, my hand, it needs to turn a little bit as well. But if I put a shoulder rest on, or a pad, or whatever it is that you use, and I'll just put it back on again, you will see by the height of this side, which is the shoulder side, it's the same side as the chin rest, I've got a lot of height. Now what that does is it tilts the violin, right, from this angle to this angle, and that makes it easier to reach the G string, right? So I don't have to have such a big turn in my elbow and my hand. I can sort of almost have it like that, where it's working in a straight way, right? And then of course I do need to turn my hand a little bit. But it certainly helps to tilt the violin. So something else that helps is that a lot of people put their shoulder rest across the violin like that, whereas I advocate putting the shoulder rest at that angle, with the bottom of the shoulder rest, the low part, really near the bottom of the violin. And what that does is that brings the violin from the side to closer to the front, right? And that also helps to play on the G string. Because if the violin is out like this and you're trying to reach the G string, you'll have to turn your hand and your elbow and your whole arm an awful lot further to reach it, right? Like this. It's quite a lot. Whereas if the violin, helped by your shoulder rest, is more in front of you, then the G string is a lot easier to reach, like that, right? Now, I'm not saying that you can play without twisting or turning your elbow. You'll have to do that, right? But if you find it difficult to do it, then don't use your fourth finger at first. Just get yourself used to swinging your elbow underneath like this, okay? And swing it further. When you come to the E string, swing it out so that you're stretching your arm like this, right? Feels nice, okay? So a nice exercise to do to get your arm used to moving like that is to just do a little bit of pizzicato with your third finger. That's about how much the arm actually needs to move. Now let's talk about shifting and how much you have to twist your arm. When you go into third position, you shouldn't be in a different position from first position. So let's just have a look at that. Now that's fine up to third position. Now let's go into fifth position, and something that really helps when you're a little bit higher on the G string is to lift your violin slightly so that you're holding the violin more with the left hand. Let's see how that works. So we'll go into third. So you can see the position is not very twisted in my left hand. Yes, my elbow has to come over, but what I'm doing is leaning against the shoulder of the violin with the inside of my hand, right, which really helps me. So if you get into third position and you just move your actual hand up without moving your elbow sort of further over, you don't have to do that. So to go into fifth position, you don't have to move your elbow even further. Just lean against the shoulder of the violin, and that will be enough to get you into fifth position very comfortably, especially if you practice this movement like that. Because I think the major difficulty of going on the G string is people feeling that they have to do this exaggerated amount of twisting from the shoulder, their elbows moving underneath and their hand is very twisted. But you don't actually have to do that, especially if you've got a short fourth finger. You're not going to be using it up there, so you only have to use your 3 fingers, right? So you can get up there by lifting the violin up a little bit with your left hand. Okay? So let's compare that to high positions on the E string and what you have to do. It's basically the same thing. You're using the shoulder of the violin as a guide to tell you what's in tune and what's not in tune. For example, an octave. Now I'm not guessing what that note is. I'm using the shoulder of the violin to help me. So let's go to the G string and see if we can do the same thing. Now I think playing on the G string takes quite a long time for your body to get used to. You've got to work up to it because it takes a bit of stamina actually when you're playing with your hand and your arm, your elbow and everything turned a little bit like this. So don't do too much of it. You have to build it up a little bit and do plenty of opening up movements during your G-string practice. Okay, so when you do opposite movements, it's very helpful on the violin. So open yourself out and do a little bit of breathing so that you can give the muscles here a nice little rest so that they're nice and fresh when you do your practice on the G string. So another way to practice on the G string is to go down from the D string, and that's quite helpful. So when I do that, you can see there's very, very little difference in my elbow underneath. So if you go in front of a mirror and you put the arm sort of in front of you so you can see what the angles are, you will see going from the D to the G doesn't make much difference to the angle underneath. So it is possible to play on the G string without twisting so that you're in pain. You should never be in pain playing the violin, so you need to go slowly and work out what the best angle for you is, right? And the best tilt for you is to help you play on the G string. So I do hope that something in this film has helped you, and I'll say bye-bye for now. Bye.